Caleb. The title, Peace and Harmony Within Us, I think is probably not accurate. I think the title really ought to be Peace and Harmony Within Me. We're going to get really personal this morning. I don't know about you, so I can only speak for me, but I would tell you that I grow really tired of conflict. That it just seems like we have it in some way all the time. And I want us to analyze that this morning. I want us to think about what is conflict and how does that affect our peace and harmony within each of us. Now, to start, I want to go back into this 1970s, or as I call them, my heyday. You know, I was really good back in the 70s. That's been a while, Terry. We've put a few days between us. And there was something that happened in the 1970s that some of you are old enough that you're going to remember. And I want to share that with you. All right, listen carefully to this.
I'd like to buy the world a home and furnish it with love. Grow apple trees and honeybees and snow white turtle doves. I'd like to teach the world to sing with me. Perfect harmony, perfect harmony. I'd like to buy the world a home and keep it company. And the real I'd like to teach the world to sing to perfect harmony and me. And I'd like to buy the world a coat and keep it company. It's the real thing. What the world wants today. It's the real thing. What the world wants today. It's the real thing.
All right, now let me tell you what the hazard of that is. I made the decision to put this in Monday. I've had that song in my head every day this week. I can't get rid of it, no matter what I do. That is called the Hillside Ad. 1971, they put this group of young people from all across the globe. They brought in these singers from all over the world, and they flew them all into Rome, and they put them on this hillside to record this video. Now, it cost them $250,000 to make that commercial. It has, and still is, the most successful television commercial in the history of TV. And it is easily the most successful Coca-Cola commercial. Number 2 Coca-Cola commercial was Joe Green, that gave the little boy his jersey in exchange for a Coke. Okay, Mean Joe Green. Okay. But what's interesting is the songwriters who wrote this jingle, this song, they had no clue that anybody would ever want to use that in anything. They were almost playing with it. And they said, let's record this. And they went into a studio in London and recorded the song. And it was the same studio where another song was recorded you might have heard of called Let It Be. That commercial, those lyrics, I'd like to buy the world a home and furnish it with love and grow apple trees and honeybees and snow white turtle doves. Hey, it doesn't get much more peaceful than that, does it? I love that.
What happened?
But since then, some things have changed. Not everything since 1971 has been all unicorns and peaches and cream. And in fact, it was even less than a decade later that another song was recorded by Don Henley called Dirty Laundry. And the words of that song, I make my living off the evening news, just give me something, something I can use. People love it when you lose. They love dirty laundry. Kick them when they're up and kick them when they're down. Kick them all around. Henley wrote this song because he was mad at how often the news was portraying him in a negative light. Now, he had some things in his life that didn't go well, and they picked up on that. But I would suggest to you this. News, today I guess we'd say social media, is selling it. And you and I are buying it. Why? Because we have, as a culture, decided that it's nice to be scared and worried and astonished and even entertained by it. Lisa and I went for several years without hardly ever going to see a movie. We're into our going to the movie mode now. And I think it's because I bought one of those buckets that's good for a year. But we went to see a movie just in the last couple of weeks called Twisters. You probably saw the original. If you did, you've seen the new one. They're just alike. But why was Twister and Twisters, why have they been so successful? Because we like that suspense, we like that drama, we love seeing cows fly in the air. It's suspenseful. And then we can see what whole towns look like when they've been wiped off the map. We're drawn to that sort of thing. And yet, regardless of the lyrics of the song, there is now within our culture something that draws us to bad things. I'm sure Walter could tell you, but think about this. Laws had to be created to prohibit you from chasing ambulances and fire trucks. That's against the law now. Why? Because we want to go see the bad thing that happened. Right? Where does that come from? And I would suggest to you that peace and harmony, we don't seek after nearly as much as we do finding out what the latest, greatest negative thing is. You know, you can look on Facebook, there's a local group there called I Despise Columbia. No, it's I Love Columbia, but that's my name for it. Somebody will post something good, and it doesn't last 15 seconds. 12 people will tell you why that's wrong, that that's all bad instead. We don't really like peace. We don't like harmony. That hillside ad wouldn't speak to anybody today under the age of 40. It's not something that we value. And as a result, we are, I would say this, I think that we are actually addicted to it. Who would have ever thought that something called reality TV would become a thing? I liked it when Archie and Edith got into arguments. I didn't need two people who've been dropped off in the wilderness in Africa naked to get into an argument. Hysteria, conflict, outrage, we thrive. Road rage. We almost got killed Friday, not far from the airport, when two less than thoughtful citizens came around us, one in a McLaren and one in an older version of a Mercedes, and traffic was heavy, and I'm not I would estimate they were doing in excess of 100 miles an hour each. To the point that when one of them came up on traffic, he had to leave the road and take the shoulder to get around the traffic to stay up with the next guy. Road rage. I experienced road fear before I experienced road rage. I wanted to call Walter on his private number. Say, you got to find this clown. I asked my son about it. Wilson County, he said, there's only one black McLaren. We know who it is. Think about this. Why does conflict destroy peace? A situation in which unacceptable differences in interests, expectations, values, and opinions occur in or between individuals or groups of people. To fight or disagree actively, conflict of two sides, to come into collision or disagreement, be contradictory, at variance, or in opposition, to clash, to fight, to contend, to do battle. That's what conflict is. And it's easy to see why. Conflict would disrupt the church. And why, in doing so, peace and harmony, the world we'd like to sing about, can easily take a back seat when we're always fighting and arguing. And here's what Paul, we're in Philippians, and we're getting down to the last couple of lessons in the book of Philippians. Here's what we're going to look at in chapter 4, verses 6 and following. He says, be anxious for nothing. The King James Version says, be careful for nothing. But in everything by prayer and supplication with thanksgiving, let your requests be made known to God. And the peace of God, which surpasses all understanding, will guard your hearts and minds through Christ Jesus. Finally, brothers, sisters, whatever is true, whatever is noble, whatever is right, whatever is pure, whatever is lovely, whatever is admirable, if there's anything that is excellent or praiseworthy, think about those things. Whatever you have learned or received or heard from me or seen in me, put into practice. And the God of peace will be with you. He gives you the formula. If you don't have peace, he says if you'll just put these things in your head, the God of peace is going to be with you. And oh, by the way, it's a peace that passes understanding. Now, Wes asked us Friday night, we were over in Mount Juliet. He said, do you have a place in your mind from your experience, your life, where you think back and fondly remember how much that spot, that time, that moment put you at peace? It's an interesting question. And his answer surprised both of us. He said it's after Christmas presents have all been opened and the mess is cleaned up and we're sitting in the yellow living room and the family is there and we've had such a wonderful day and the tree is up and all the decorations are there. And he said, I'm at peace. Which means that we will never be able to paint the living room. But where is your peace moment? If you could go back there, where would it be and what would you do? Now here's what Paul said. He said about the things that are peace thieves: worry, anxiety. In everything, be prayerful. What does the word everything mean? It means everything. Good stuff, bad stuff, stuff that's neither good nor bad. In everything, be prayerful. And let your prayer and your supplication and your thanksgiving, let those requests be made known to God. Worry, obviously, doesn't fix anything. but it's going to exist. And I think what Paul is telling us here is, we got to learn how to turn stuff over. There are things you can't fix. Give it up. Turn it over to God. We're going to have challenges. And we should be assured that those challenges, if we continue to dwell on them, can be debilitating. That they can cause a breakdown in us. And it's important that you and I identify those things as peace stealers. The things that you worry about that you can't change, you can't fix, you can't do anything about them, and you've got to find some way to give them up. In verse 7 he said, so that the peace of God that surpasses all understanding can be yours again. If you study the book of Ephesians, there is a theme in the book of Ephesians, and some have said that Ephesians 3:20 highlights that theme. Now to him who's able to do exceedingly abundantly above all that we ask or think, according to the power that works in us, for we'll guard our hearts and our minds. Above anything that you and I could even conceive of, that God has the ability to give it to us in a way that benefits us and that provides us with peace. Then we find out that among the things that are peace stealers are what in the book of Galatians would be described is when we have conflicted minds. Isn't it true that peace is a state of mind? State of heart, if you will. And so if your state of mind is rocked, conflicted, imbalanced, it's going to be a peace stealer. Now, there are a number of heart issues that you and I have to deal with along the way. But what he's talking about here, when we talk about in Galatians 5, as conflicted minds, he's talking about things that result from attitudes like enmity and strife and jealousy and fits of anger, contention, turmoil, railing, reveling, drama, anger, jealousy. What are all of those? Those are all examples of conflict. And so he says, if you have these in your life, it's going to steal your joy. You've got to find some way to get rid of all of this. And he goes on in Galatians 5 and says, in the world we have sensuality, we have sexuality, we have idolatry, and those are states of mind that will keep you from having the peace of God that passes understanding. And it is part of why we are, by nature, human. We have carnal minds. Are we not carnality? It has to be trained. It has to be conditioned. As Wes and Rachel are trying to train Liam, there's a whole list of words that they didn't provide to us that are off limits around Liam. Not curse words, but words that Lisa uses all the time. Grandma, we don't say that. It's not S-T-U-P-I-D, it's something else. And so that process of training a mind that goes otherwise. You see, and when we have those things that are described on the screen as a normal part of our life, we live in turmoil. And I would suggest to you that there are people who thrive in turmoil. I have used this example before because I think it fits so well. The couple in Andy Griffith that argued and fought all the time, and they tried to get them to talk nicer to each other. Morning, dear. Morning, darling. And it wasn't until they realized that they were absolutely miserable when they were talking nice to each other, they convinced them to let it go. Thank you, Andy. Nice to see you. I hate you so much. And they were in their heyday again.
Love is good.
There are people who thrive on turmoil. If you don't believe it, get yourself a Facebook account.
Don't need that.
And there are things in this life and on earth that are going to steal your peace because they are what we would describe as just conflicts of life. Peter said, "Beloved, I beg you." We sang the song this morning. "I beg you, as a sojourner, as a pilgrim, abstain from fleshly lusts, which war against the soul." Think about that statement. These are things at war against your soul, who you're trying to guard, that you're trying to give to God. These put them in conflict with each other. Have your conduct honorable among the Gentiles, that when they speak against you as an evildoer, they may by your good works, which they observe, glorify God in the day of visitation. They're going to talk evil about you. You can't do anything about that. You can try to fuss back. You know, there are some arguments, particularly political arguments, that are such a waste of time because nobody's going to change. I've never seen a political argument where at the end of it somebody said, "You know, I think you're right. I'm going to come over to your side." He says, look, we need to think about this war that goes on within us. He said, we are at war. There's a war going against your soul because we're strangers, we're pilgrims. Get away from fleshly lusts and don't worry about those who speak against you. Why? Because all that's going to do is take your nature and change it. And sports fans, nobody needs this sermon more than some others. There are some conflicts that are inevitable. Peter taught that that was going to happen. And there are some that matter. Some conflicts are just distractions. You know, things you have to do that give you angst, like paying your bills, paying or in Tom's case, paying your taxes. You know, those things that give you angst. There are some conflicts that are sinful in nature. And we have to figure out which conflicts do we need to make room for, and that we need to prioritize, and that we need to fix what we can fix. And there are some needs for us to change, because there are gaps between what is real and what is ideal that can't be overcome. Right? There's some things that would be ideal that aren't real. If we could get together and wave our magic wand, you know, we would do what I think it's France does. They have 3 weeks from the time they announce their candidacy until the election. That would take away a whole lot of conflict in our society. You find out today who the candidates are, and we're going to decide in 3 weeks, and it's over. I would vote for that. Amen. And what we need to do is to understand that there's going to be guilt when we know that we're not doing what we ought to do and want to do. I sense that guilt when Paul says, the things that I know to do, I don't do those. The things I know I'm not supposed to do, those are the ones I do. I get that sense of guilt in his life, in his heart, that he's not meeting the standard. He's not meeting the expectation. He's aware of it, and he's trying to find a way to deal with it. And in the process of dealing with it, it becomes a useful conflict. How am I going to get better? And we know that there are some things that we need to have as takeaways. Useful conflicts. Bad health choices. I still had ribs last night. I don't care. That there are excessive time wasters, consumers. One and the same. There is excessive and debilitative types of stress. The ones that you know you can't do anything about, and you know you can't get your mind off of them anyway. We had a stressful week in our house, and it's continuing. And we're discussing plans, we're discussing options. But we can't fix it. All we can do is find a way to manage it. And that's what we're going to have to do. And so there are some things you need to take away, but there's also some things you need to add. And there's your list. I told Benjamin just a day or two ago that I am so excited about Wednesday night. That I am hopeful, optimistic, that for the first time in my adult life, I may have a way to think about Revelation that makes sense to me, and not only is not frightening and disturbing, but is encouraging. And so that is only a result of whatever we're, 40 minutes on Wednesday night? A handful of times, and it could change the way that we look at a significant portion of the Bible. And there are things that we ought to add into our life. Yes, hobbies. I will tell you, there's some folks who need a hobby so they can have less time for what they're doing. You know, that it could be that finding a new way to volunteer or to work or to do another job, or maybe go back and take a class. You don't have to get a degree. Go find something you're interested in and take a class on, or find a class online. I've practically given up. I'm not going to be able to learn Spanish. My aged mind won't let me do that. But adding those things right there will add peace to your life. They will add some harmony to your life. And we have to attempt to remove the ones that we can remove and to minimize the ones that we can't remove. And we need to stop finding so many ways to spread ourselves so thin that we're not good at anything. You can do that. You know, the whole phrase about jack of all trades and master of none, all that means is you ain't good at anything. Stop spreading yourself out so thin. Find something that you can do well. I decided a long time ago, I can't define that, years ago, that if I was going to keep doing this preaching thing, that I wanted to know something really, really well about Scripture. And I decided that the book of John, I was going to know as well as anything I've ever known in my life. And I have undertaken over years a study of the book of John. And I believe that what that has done for me, it's helped me to understand who Christ is better. It's not the same Christ that we see in Matthew, Mark, and Luke. It was written at a different time and later, and there's stuff that they knew at that point that they didn't know before. And so the book of John is, to me, one of the most helpful and encouraging books in all of the Scripture. We need to find something that will enhance our peace, because we live in a high-demand society. There is somebody who will put something on your life all the time if you allow them to do that. And as a result, you don't have that time. I hope you have a place at home where you can go out in the evening or early morning, grab a cup of coffee or a glass of tea or whatever it is that you enjoy. Just sit and listen. Listen to what God did. Listen to what He created. We were out on the back porch the other night, and Lisa said, "Are those frogs?" Because they were so loud. And we never see any frogs. So it's God's way of reminding us He's still here. And that we need to understand those things that are peace thieves. That give you anxiety and worry and gives you a conflicted mind, and the things that war against our soul. Those are the things that are going to steal our peace, and we need to figure out, when is conflict useful and how can we deal with it? And so, finding peace in our lives, we need to learn how to be at peace with God. We need to find out how to be at peace with ourselves. In an upcoming lesson, I told you that this part of Philippians, I would say, is about having peace and harmony within ourselves. The next piece is going to be how to have peace and harmony with others. Because that's when you're going to have real joy. And then we have to decide, what is it that we're going to leave in the hands of God? When Lexi read to us from John 14, did you catch in there where it said, "Peace I leave with you, my peace I give to you"? We have the peace that Jesus gave us. And then he went on to say, not like the world is going to give to you peace. Don't let your heart be troubled. Don't let it be afraid. You heard what I said. I'm going away and I'm coming back to you. And if you love me, you would rejoice that I said I'm going to my Father, because my Father is greater than I. And he also told us that where I am, there you can be too. That's peace. That's our target. That's our end goal. That's where we're trying to get to. And if we really want to have honeybees and apple trees and snow white turtle doves, we have to be at peace with God and ourselves and with other people. Good luck getting the song out of your head. This morning, we're going to sing a song of invitation, and we invite you. If you're like I am, and it was a hard week, there were lots of peace stealers that jumped up and slapped me this week. The key, I think, time was when they called and said, your wife is in one emergency room and your mother-in-law's in the next one. And I said, what happened? And they said, well, Lisa threw up. Now, for a normal person, that wouldn't mean much, right? But when I heard the phrase, I jumped up and started changing clothes, because she's now older than Methuselah, and that's the second time in her life she's ever thrown up. That got my attention. It was a peace stealer, and it happened just like that. You're going to have them. It's going to happen in your life. And what you and I have to do is that we have to find a way to not let those things steal what Jesus gave us. Peace I leave with you. This morning we're going to sing this song as a means of encouragement for you. If you have a need to come and ask for prayers, for strength, for forgiveness, or you're ready to come and say, hey, I want eternal peace. That young man back there at the camera just got baptized a few days ago. He led prayer this morning and did about as fine a job as anyone could ever hope for. That's a change in his life. And those who have not been baptized, you need that change. You need to use his example. You need to figure out what you're going to do to try to get things right with God and go forward so that you can have long-term, eternal peace. If you have a need to come this morning, won't you come right now as together we stand and as we sing this song.